Have you ever really asked yourself if you're free? Take a moment. Think carefully. Because look at how you start your day. You wake up, and what's the first thing you do? You grab your phone, right? You start scrolling, hunting for something, anything to distract you. Maybe a quick video, maybe the news, maybe a funny meme. Then you grab a coffee, maybe scroll some more while you drink it. On your way to work or to class, you throw on a podcast or a song, trying to chase away that feeling of boredom. And as you keep moving through your day, it never stops. Notifications, messages, content, one after another, hitting you nonstop. And then, when you finally get a moment of silence, what happens? Suddenly there's this weird discomfort, a sense of emptiness you can't quite explain. So what do? You look for another distraction, another quick pleasure hit. Look, pleasure by itself isn't the villain here. Pleasure is a natural part of being human. It's literally an evolutionary tool that pushes us toward things that keep us alive and healthy. But what happens when pleasure turns into a prison? When you need to feel good every single second, and you can't stand even a minute of discomfort. That's when you get stuck in a cycle of instant gratification that feels impossible to break. Aldous Huxley saw this coming almost 100 years ago. While George Orwell warned us about governments that would control us through violence and oppression, think 1984, Huxley imagined something even scarier. A world where no one needed to be forced to obey because they were so entertained, so drowned in pleasure, they never even thought about rebelling. A society where slavery didn't come with chains, but with endless entertainment. Where people actually loved their own servitude. Now, look around you. Really look. What do you see? We live in a world obsessed with entertainment. Constant pleasure, endless consumption, distraction at every turn. Social media, videos, shopping, games, all ready to give you a quick dopamine hit the moment you feel even slightly bored. But what's the price of all this? Is this constant rush for instant happiness really making you free, or is it keeping you trapped? That's what I want to talk about in this video. Because modern society has trained us to treat pleasure as a tool of control. And that dependency on pleasure might just be turning you into something you never expected, a willing slave. If you think you're fully in control of your own mind, you might want to stick around, because what if you never really were? The most powerful kind of slavery doesn't need bars or whips or threats. It only needs something deceptively simple: pleasure. When pleasure becomes the center of your entire existence, servitude puts on the disguise of freedom. That's exactly the nightmare Huxley described in Brave New World. Picture a society where nobody ever questions anything because they're too entertained to even bother, where meaning is replaced by shallow distractions, where pleasure isn't a choice, but an obligation. In Huxley's world, people were conditioned from birth to avoid anything uncomfortable. If they felt sad or anxious, there was a fix immediately, a drug called soma, the perfect happy pill. It numbed every negative thought, every hint of existential dread. It kept everyone calm, cooperative, and numb.
But is that really fiction? Think about your own day. When you feel bored or frustrated, what's your first instinct? Do you pause and actually sit with that feeling? Or do you immediately go grab something to distract yourself? Social media, a snack, a video, a hookup, a shopping spree. Our modern world doesn't have soma, but it has its own versions. In the age of instant gratification, you never need to face the void. You can fill it in seconds with the next hit of dopamine. And the most dangerous part? Nobody is forcing you. No one is standing over you telling you to scroll TikTok for hours. No one is holding a gun to your head, saying, keep consuming, keep watching, keep buying. But if it's really a choice, why is it so hard to stop? Here's the answer. Conditioning. When your brain gets used to handling every negative feeling with immediate pleasure, that becomes your go-to solution. Over time, you forget how to deal with boredom or discomfort. You lose the ability to sit alone with your thoughts. And that's exactly how you end up as Huxley's happy, compliant servant. No chains needed. So why does this happen? Why is it so hard to break out? How does a whole society end up programmed to chase distraction instead of thinking critically? That's what we'll break down in the next section. But let me ask you this. Why do you think you automatically grab your phone whenever you feel even a tiny bit uncomfortable? Why do you get that itch for a new notification, a new scroll, a new video? It's not an accident. From the moment you were born, you were conditioned to avoid discomfort at any cost. Schools didn't teach you how to think critically. They taught you how to repeat and obey. The job market doesn't train you to reflect, but to produce and perform. And entertainment culture, it drowns you in distractions, so you never even think to question the system.
Add it all together, and you get a society where the real danger isn't that free speech is forbidden, it's that people just stop caring about free speech altogether. Huxley understood this in Brave New World. People didn't need to be oppressed with violence because they were conditioned to love their own chains. As kids, they were trained through hypnopedia, messages repeated while they slept, so that by the time they grew up, they believed happiness was found in conformity, in running away from pain, in never questioning anything. Now think about today. We don't have hypnopedia, but we do have social media algorithms, relentless marketing, and dopamine triggers built right into our phones. Every notification is a microdose of pleasure. Every short video rewards you with something new. Over time, you don't have to think for yourself because everything is handed to you in bite-sized, easy-to-digest pieces. And every time you conform, you get rewarded. A like, a heart, a follower, a dopamine spike. It trains you to keep going down the same path. What's the result? A whole generation that doesn't know how to be alone with their own thoughts. A generation that sees boredom as torture. A generation that can't question the system because they've forgotten how to even begin questioning. In the end, you don't need a dictatorship to control people if they reject critical thinking on their own. But that has a cost, a huge cost. When you run away from discomfort all the time, you become weaker, easier to manipulate, easier to break. So how does a culture of constant pleasure make us more passive, more fragile, more easy to control? That's what we'll dive into in the next part. Imagine a world where no one ever suffers, where every pain is erased right away. No sadness, no frustration, no anxiety, just endless comfort. Sounds like paradise, doesn't it? But look closer. What happens to someone who never faces a challenge? What happens to a society programmed to instantly erase any discomfort? The answer is brutally simple. It becomes weak. Huxley saw this trap perfectly in Brave New World. Their happiness was guaranteed by a drug, soma. No side effects, no real risk, just instant relief. But underneath that so-called happiness was something hollow. People forgot how to handle pain, how to process frustration, how to even sit with their own thoughts. The moment anything felt uncomfortable, they reached for soma and buried it all under a chemical haze. Life turned into a series of shallow pleasures, casual sex, endless consumption, mindless entertainment. Anything that challenged them, anything that required effort, was viewed as dangerous and even threatening. Now look around our world today. We might not have soma, but we have countless modern equivalents. Social media gives you instant validation. Dating apps remove the sting of rejection. Recommendation algorithms feed you exactly what you want before you even know you want it. It's all designed to remove friction, to erase discomfort, instantly.
But what's the price of this? That price is your own psychological strength. Because here's the truth: pain has a purpose. Suffering builds resilience. Struggle shapes character. Frustration forces you to adapt, to grow, to transform. When you cut out all pain, when you anesthetize every bump in the road, you lose the tools that make you truly human. You become fragile, easily broken. Look at how people react nowadays to the smallest discomfort. Minor failures feel catastrophic. Tiny conflicts blow up into drama. A task that takes patience is seen as unbearable. That's because we've been conditioned to chase the easiest path, the quickest pleasure, the least resistance. And do you know what that makes us? Easier to control. Think about it. A society full of strong, resilient, thoughtful people is hard to manipulate. They won't blindly obey. They won't go along with every trend or social pressure. They'll question, challenge, and resist. But a society full of emotionally dependent, dopamine-addicted individuals? That's the perfect population for those who want power without the hassle of force. If people fear discomfort so much that they'll do anything to avoid it, they'll happily trade their freedom for the illusion of happiness. That is how the trap closes. Because what feels like freedom, the ability to avoid every bit of pain, actually turns into a prison. You become so used to avoiding struggle that you can't function without a steady drip of pleasure. But there is a way out. The answer lies in understanding the difference between pleasure and purpose. Pleasure can enslave you. Purpose can set you free.
So ask yourself, what are you really chasing in life? Is it happiness or is it meaning? Pleasure or is it purpose? On the surface, it seems obvious. Of course, everyone wants to be happy. But have you ever actually defined what that means? Modern society pushes a version of happiness that's really just an endless line of quick pleasures. Likes, followers, shopping, one-night stands, binge-watching shows, eating highly processed foods that make you feel good for 5 minutes but leave you emptier than before. This feels satisfying in the moment, but never lasts. And that's the key. Pleasure is always temporary. You constantly have to renew it, or the emptiness comes back. Now think about the moments that truly changed you. The moments that shaped who you are, that made you stronger, more confident, more human. Were they moments of instant pleasure? Or were they moments of challenge, of overcoming something hard, of fighting for something meaningful? Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, wrote about this in Man's Search for Meaning. He discovered that people can't live without purpose. Even in the most horrible conditions imaginable, those who found a deeper meaning were the ones who survived with their sanity intact. That's the paradox. Pleasure is easy. Purpose is hard. Pleasure is immediate. Purpose takes time. Pleasure fades. Purpose stays with you.
But purpose goes against the logic of modern society. Purpose takes effort. Purpose means patience. It means accepting discomfort.
And that's not profitable for a system that wants you addicted to quick hits of consumption. See, an individual who finds their purpose no longer needs to be distracted 24/7. They don't crave cheap entertainment to fill their emptiness. They can't be easily manipulated with flashy marketing or false promises of happiness, and that's dangerous for a system built on your constant attention. That's why you're bombarded with endless stimuli, because purpose is the enemy of consumption. So if you feel like something is missing in your life, maybe the answer isn't more pleasure, but less. Maybe it isn't about finding the next distraction, but cutting back on all the noise so you can hear what truly matters. Ask yourself, what really motivates me? What gets me out of bed in the morning? Am I living for disposable pleasures, or am I building something that has real weight? It's not easy to answer because the world around you is designed to keep you from even asking. But how do you actually break free from this cycle and reclaim your mind? How do you make sure you live on your own terms, not those of an algorithm? That's what I'll explore in the next part.
Now that you see how chasing constant pleasure can trap you, there's one question left. How do you break free? How do you take back control of your mind in a world built to keep you distracted, doped up, and emotionally dependent? First off, you need to accept that it won't be easy. The system is literally designed to make you fail. It wants you stuck in those dopamine loops, constantly feeding the algorithm, consuming endlessly. That's how the system survives. But you can break free. And it starts with a simple shift: awareness. You have to notice the game before you can stop playing it. The first strategy to escape is what I'd call strategic deprivation. That doesn't mean you give up all pleasure forever or become some joyless monk. It means you intentionally limit your exposure to the most addictive stimuli, at least for a while. Turn off social media for a few days. Stop mindlessly binge watching. Cut back on highly processed foods. It's going to feel uncomfortable at first. Your brain is used to constant hits of dopamine. But if you stick with it, something amazing happens. Your brain recalibrates. You start to find satisfaction in smaller, more meaningful things again. The urge to chase artificial pleasures loses its power. The second step is to rebuild your tolerance for discomfort. Modern culture trains you to run from anything unpleasant. But if you want to take back your freedom, you have to learn how to handle boredom, frustration, even sadness. Disconnect from the flood of content. Let yourself sit in silence. Go for a walk without music. Meditate. Journal. It will feel awkward and painful at first, but over time, you'll discover something powerful. Discomfort won't kill you. In fact, it will make you stronger.
The third step is to develop critical thinking. Start asking yourself uncomfortable questions. Why do I feel the need to constantly distract myself? Who profits from my addiction to pleasure? What could I build or learn if I wasn't trapped in this cycle of scrolling and consuming? The more you question your own patterns, the more you'll realize how many of them were planted in you, not by your choice, but by the culture around you. Once you see that, you can start rewriting the story. And the fourth, maybe most important step, is to replace pleasure with purpose. We talked about this earlier, but it deserves repeating. Purpose is the real antidote to shallow happiness. When you have something meaningful to fight for, something you truly care about, you don't need endless cheap pleasures to distract you. Purpose gives you an anchor. It gives you strength to endure discomfort. It makes you resilient in a way dopamine hits never will. Ask yourself, what do I actually want to build? What am I willing to suffer for? What would make my life feel genuinely meaningful? These are hard questions. They take time, but they matter more than anything else because they build a life that isn't easy to manipulate. But here's the catch. even if you do start to break free, the world around you is still trapped. When you decide to change, people will notice, and they might not react the way you expect. Some people will admire you. They'll see your new focus, your clarity, and feel inspired. Others will feel threatened. When you break away from the dopamine-fueled herd, you become a mirror reflecting what they don't want to see about themselves. They might try to pull you back in, not because they hate you, but because your change makes them uncomfortable. That's part of the price of freedom. True freedom often comes with resistance and even loneliness, because most people are still plugged into the pleasure machine. When you unplug, you stand out.
But remember this, if you've made it this far, something inside you has already started to wake up. You can see the trap now. You can see how society uses pleasure to keep you obedient and passive. You know how easy it is to go along with the program and never ask questions. But you also know it doesn't have to be that way. You can choose another path. You can choose to fight for your mind. You can choose to build a purpose that gives you meaning beyond the next dopamine hit. You can choose to become the kind of person who isn't easily manipulated. That choice is yours. You can keep living the same way, chasing the next quick pleasure, distracting yourself whenever the emptiness creeps in. You can stay numb, feeding the system and letting it control you through cheap happiness. Or you can decide that you've had enough. You can face the discomfort, embrace the silence, and start thinking for yourself. It's not going to be easy. You'll have to stand up to habits you've built over years and a culture that wants you to stay compliant. You'll have to stand apart from people who won't understand your choices. But if you do it, if you break free, you'll discover a kind of freedom most people never taste. The freedom of your own mind, your own choices, your own purpose. So I want to leave you with a question. What are you going to do with this knowledge? Will you go back to scrolling, to chasing, to consuming? Or will you take the first step toward reclaiming your own mind? Drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Have you ever felt trapped in this cycle of instant gratification? Do you feel like pleasure has been used to control you? I'd love to hear your experiences. And if this video gave you a new perspective, don't forget to like and subscribe. Turn on notifications, because on this channel, we don't just go with the flow. We question, we reflect, and we search for truths no one else wants to talk about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.